I am a 29-year-old male, and I was out partying this Friday night with 4 of my female friends, 2 of which I have just met that evening. And we were having drinks at a club in Central Europe, and the night was going great. We were dancing and talking, all of us had fun. At around 2 a.m., the girls grabbed a taxi and went home. I have stayed a bit more in the club to finish my drink. I danced on the stage for about 20 minutes, then I grabbed a taxi and went home. When I arrived on the street where I live, my drunk ass realized that I forgot my keys, and I couldn't get home as I live alone. So I called another taxi and went back to the club to look for my keys. First I went to the bar to ask if anybody has brought any lost keys to them that night. Unfortunately, they didn't have my keys, so I started to look for them in the club and every place that I was in that night. I have turned on the flashlight on my phone and have been looking for the keys in a mass of people. About 10 minutes go by, and I haven't found anything apart from broken glass and sick butts. I went back to the place where I was initially looking for them. This is the place where we have been having our drinks with the girls. I have started to look for my keys on the sitting benches instead of on the ground. I've had my keys in the inside pocket of my jacket, as I always do, and my jacket was placed in the corner of that bench the whole night before I first left. People were sitting on the benches, and they've had their jackets on the benches too. I sat down near the corner where I was sitting before, and besides me was a guy with lines of some drugs on his phone, freely giving them to other people. He put his jacket in the corner of the bench, and I wanted to look at the corner of the bench to see if my keys haven't been pushed into the corner or something. So I grabbed his jacket, and to my surprise, my keys were right under his jacket, in the middle of the bench. I was so happy to find my keys. I was drunk and started pretty much yelling how happy I am to find my keys, as I was getting fucking desperate at that moment. There was a guy on that bench that we have met with the girls before in the club. I will call him L. He was really nice during the whole night, and so I kept talking to L when I found my keys. I've even went to the bar and grabbed another beer just to talk for a bit more with L. I went to the toilet to take a pee, and when I came back, L had found himself an acquaintance to which he was talking. So I just started to finish my beer while I smoked a cigarette and was getting ready to go home. This is when the guy that had lines of some drugs on his phone has started talking to me. I will call him Pedro, as it was definitely a fake name that he gave me. I've been talking with him in English. Pedro was 19 years old and he was from Colombia. He told me stories about how life is in Colombia and how his family struggles. He told me that his father has died recently and he is the oldest son, so he is in Slovakia trying to make some money for the family. He even showed me photos of him and his family back in Colombia. I sympathized with Pedro and I was feeling sorry for him. After about 20 minutes, Ellis scored with a girl that he met and he said that they were going home. He asked Pedro if he has any MDMA on him, and he sold some to them, so I left with the girl. People around on the beach have seen that happening, and so they wanted some drugs from Pedro. So we started to make lines on his phone again. I told Pedro that I'm going home, and wished him best luck, grabbed my jacket and started walking. This is when Pedro called out to me and stopped me. Said that it's late and he should go back to the hotel too. He scratched the drugs from his phone onto the table, took his belongings and told the people that they can finish whatever was left for free. Pedro and I have walked out of the underground club. When we were outside, he asked me if I could walk him to his hotel, which was nearby, a 5-minute walk. He told me in the club that he has no friends and no family in Slovakia. I really sympathized with him. I told him that sure, I could walk him to the hotel. We were talking the whole walk, and he was saying really nice things to me. like how I get his situation and how a good person I am. When we arrived at the hotel, the door was closed and he messaged to someone to come and open the door for him. He asked if I want to have one last beer with him, to which I said sure, but I will be on my way once we finish the beer. Some girl came and opened the door for us. They have spoken in Spanish as they greeted. The hotel itself didn't really look like a public hotel. There was a reception and stairs up, and on the left was a dining room. Pedro told me to wait for him in the dining room. This was like 5 a.m. already. I went to the dining room and there was a girl sitting with her laptop. I greeted her with hola and sat down. Pedro came after maybe 3 to 5 minutes with 2 open cans of some beverage. There was a parrot and a Jack Daniels logo. The can was in gold color, I think. This is the moment that I should get suspicious and not drink from an open can. My naive and drunk ass overlooked this fact, and I had drank from the can. I was talking with Pedro about all the drug cartels in Colombia and how their politics is fucked up. After about 10 minutes, I started to feel weird and I looked at my phone. My hands and eyes were tingling. I was quickly aware of what was happening now. I turned on the location and mobile data on my phone, and I put the phone in a different pocket than I did that night. Pedro started to ask me how I'm feeling, to which my adrenaline levels blow up. I started to think that I'm being abducted by some Colombian human trafficking ring. My sight started to weirdly tingle, and the lights were blinding me. My jaw was fucked up as I was pushing my teeth together. I have taken drugs in the past, and this felt like a stimulant and a dissociative, which was really weird for me to understand. I tried to keep my voice calm and my mind present. I told Pedro that I know what is going on, and I asked him why he gave me a stimulant if he needs me unconscious. Pedro's hand started to shake, and he didn't answer to me. The girl at the laptop has looked right in my eyes, the first time that she even moved with her body. Pedro grabbed his phone and started to write to somebody on WhatsApp. I told Pedro that they did a mistake in the dose and that I'm fine apart from having been unknowingly drugged. I think that Pedro had drugged me back in the club while I went to the toilet, which is why he quickly got up when I was leaving. Everything I said, Pedro rewrote to somebody else, and he was always waiting for an incoming message before saying anything to me. I started to talk to the girl too. I told her that I don't give a fuck about what they are doing there, but I'm walking out. At one moment, I remember saying what I get what Pedro was doing, but I don't get what the girl's part was in all of this, to which I was pointing my finger at her. Pedro's got a notification on his phone, and he told me that he is sorry and I can go home if I want. I didn't respond to him. Got my drunk ass up, and as I was walking out of the dining room, I stopped by the girl with her laptop, stared right into her eyes, and I held my right hand up in a fist bump. She looked in my eyes, gave me a fist bump, and did a weird grimace on her face. I walked to the door at the reception, which were closed. I started to kick and punch the doors while yelling, "Open the fucking door." The receptionist did, and I walked out. My heart was pumping, my whole body was shaking. I was feeling both dizzy and awake. I ran to a main street, and I was calling my mom to come and get me as fast as possible. But I didn't know where I was. I was feeling dissociated and couldn't really apprehend what just happened. As I got to a main street where a bus stop was, I started to feel very paranoid. There was a white Mercedes SUV that stopped right in the main road near the bus stop that I stood on. They turned off the car lights and were just standing there. I told all of this to my mom, and she told me to look for a camera. So I stood right under a camera, which was at the bus stop, to make sure that I'm seen. I was feeling and talking weirdly, to which my mom told me to talk to her, to tell her what I can see around me. I have seen a few people that walk to the main street. Everybody was on their phone and occasionally looking at me. One guy came close to the bus stop, and I approached him while I still had my mom on the phone. I asked him what does he want from me, and he was like, "I'm sorry, do I know you?" To which I said that I'm sorry. After about 10 minutes of me being on the phone with my mom, the white SUV turned on the engine and left off. My mom came by car soon after. I was walking to her car on the road, but I couldn't walk properly. I felt paranoid, tons of adrenaline going through my body. My heart was pumping so fast, I thought I'm going to have some kind of a seizure. I managed to get in my mom's car. She was in her pajamas and was very scared. I started to tell her everything that happened. I told her to drive around our city instead of driving me home in case they are following us. We were driving around for maybe an hour, talked about what happened during the night, how the inside of that building looked and all. My jaw was going so crazy that my mom could hear it, and she was really scared for me. The whole ride I was feeling really weird. At one point, I felt like my soul left my body. I can't really describe it. I didn't feel like myself, like I'm not real. Lights were blinding me and my vision was blurred and tingling, like my eyes were going up and down all the time. I didn't feel no rushes of euphoria or anything. I thought that they gave me some mix of drugs. I arrived at my home at around 7:30 a.m. My mom stayed at home with me, comforting me. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. We were talking about going to the police, and also about if I'm in any kind of danger anymore. At around 11 a.m., I fell asleep. During this time, my mom cleaned my apartment, and my sister came to visit me. I don't know what I would do without my family. One of my girlfriends that was with me during that night came to visit me. As I talked to her, I thought that I got some kind of an episode, like schizophrenic or something. Like, why the hell would I be a target of something like this? I'm a chubby bearded guy. Why would they want to abduct me? I'm afraid of going to the police, as our police department and politics are corrupt, and they always work with any kind of mafias as long as I can remember. And then they will be stopped by their officials. I still don't fully believe that what happened to me was an experience with a human trafficking ring. However, there are so many red flags of it in what I can remember. Like, why would Pedro be scared after I called him out? Why would he stop talking to me unless someone sent him a message on his phone? Why would he even start to message someone during our conversation? Why the fuck would he drug me without me knowing it? But ultimately, why the fuck would they let me go? This happened while I'm in my early 20s. My best friend was always getting into risky shit. While she did various drugs, I was always more of a pothead. When they said pot was a gateway drug, I believe it's true to a certain extent with those who have addictive personalities. She definitely developed an addiction issue later on. My friend, her name was KK, and she was always down to meet people. She would ask me to hang out so that way, when she met people, I was the buffer, just in case they didn't like each other. One day, she came over to my house unannounced and was like, "Hey, let's go to my uncle's house," because her aunt was there and her aunt has some goods. And her aunt happened to be down the road. Her aunt and her uncle were known as dealers in the area, so we went, and when we got there, she was like, "Hey, I met this guy online. He goes by Joey Crack." Then she shows her aunt his pictures. He was a wide-set man with a red goofy face, cornrow braids, face tattoos, and a gold grill. I laughed and said, "Wow, Kay, you really know how to pick 'em."
She had already invited him over, so upon his arrival, he then comes out of nowhere and he just walks right up and gives Kay a hug and everyone else there a kiss on the cheek. In this part of town, there was nothing around, just houses, a school, and woods. The closest store was about 20 minutes, so it struck me as odd that he walked here. So it was me, Kay, her aunt, and the aunt's friends. We sit and get 3 joints in rotation. By this time, both aunts are high as a kite on coke. They take a few puffs, then go inside the house, leaving me, Kay, and Joey Crack outside. Joey then starts asking us questions like how we know each other, what we do for a living, etc. It was getting late, so I was telling her I was going to go home. She was like, "No, don't go yet." I told her I was tired and that Joey is weird, and he kept low-key hitting on me. She then tells me he asked to sleep with her and he wanted to ask her to ask if I was down. I laughed it off and said, "You're crazy." And after a while of silence, I deflected and heard some noise that was in the darkness. You heard that? After a bit of small talk between him and Kay, he then learned that neither one of us was interested. It was just a hangout. This then turns the mood, you can feel it. It was suddenly eerie quiet. He got reserved and shifty-eyed. I sat down for a while just to please Kay. At one point, I turned to Joey, knowing he walked here and it was dark by now. "What you about to do? 'Cause I'm about to go home and Kay's coming with me." He was like, "I just texted my boy, he's about to come get me." When he was texting, Kay was right behind him, watching him text. Her eyes grew wide, and she looked at me. That was silent girl code for bitch what the fuck. Kay broke the silence and was like, "Hey, come help me get this thing from inside to bring it out." So I did. We went inside, and she was like, "I'ma call my uncle so he can take us to your place." And I was like, "Why?" My house was like a 10-minute walk. She said 'cause when she was looking at Joey's text, he sent to whoever was coming to pick him up the information of all of us here. He noted that her aunts were high on coke, as us along with our age. He was telling this boy to come over to basically to rob and rip us. I was mad, 'cause she got me into this shit. And called dibs on the blonde one. I was the blonde one. Every hair stood up on my body with the thought of some gross goon trying to have his way with me. I was mad, 'cause she got me into this shit. We came back out and continued our conversation with him so he wouldn't get suspicious of us. She mentions out loud that her uncle was on his way home. As he pulls in, a sign of relief came over me. They speak briefly, and Joey then departs into the darkness before his ride even shows up. Kay and I get a ride from our uncle to my house. On the ride, we noted how weird Joey was. Later that night, as I was going to bed, I checked my Facebook and I have a friend request from Joey and a message. "You're so pretty. I would love to have some alone time with you without your friend." The message ended with his number. I never blocked someone so fast. After this, Kay didn't learn her lesson, but that's another story for another time. A week later, Joey was in the news. He was wanted for sexual assault, robbery, and drug possession. A bullet well missed on my part. In the early-ish 2000s, I was killing time outside a small concert venue, and it was going to be a while for the band to start, so I decided to walk around the neighborhood a while and text my friends to see when they were showing up. It wasn't a bad neighborhood, and I didn't feel unsafe walking around, but at night most things were closed, so there wasn't really anybody else around. As I was walking and looking at my phone, this guy in an SUV pulled up halfway on the sidewalk right next to me and said something like, "Hey, do you want to ride?" I was slightly startled, but at first I thought he was harmless. To be fair, I was in my skinny jeans, faux hawk, emo phase, and he might have thought I looked like a male sex worker. When I looked closer at him, he had his shirt off and was all sweaty and kind of a bigger, stocky guy. He tried again in a more seductive sounding voice, saying, "Really? I don't mind giving you a ride." I was pretty creeped out, but tried to be friendly. I just kept my distance and said, "Thanks, but I'm good. I'm just waiting for a concert to start." Immediately, his facial expression changed from friendly to extremely angry, and he peeled out down the street so fast that his vehicle was sort of fishtailing. He could have been an undercover cop trying to bust someone for prostitution, or just a guy trying to find a sexual encounter. It was in a city in Florida where there was a lot of this kind of thing going on. But he gave me serious Jeffrey Dahmer vibes after he angrily drove off. I got the feeling that if I got in his car, he would have me taking me somewhere and put me in his fridge.